Crikey's one of those many news websites that get around. This one's Australian that pretends to be of the people, by the people, for the people. You know, crikey, yeah, we're with you. And on things that don't matter, they will actually get very boisterous against the mainstream narrative. See, we're for you, not for them. But on things that matter, like The Voice, well, they toe the line. They go after Pauline in this hit piece. This article is actually on an AAP fact check. You can see the second paragraph there, but up to the first paragraph, I got the verdict here because it lays out exactly what they said Pauline Hanson was doing. So she claimed that the Indigenous voice to Parliament would allow the government to form a new black state. Not saying that they're 100% going to, but that it's possible. So in her opening salvo in the headlines, Pauline Hanson misleads about the claim. Then next paragraph, she's wrong in her assertions. Now here's where the verdict gets a bit confusing. It doesn't seem to align with the opening salvo, that it was misleading, that it was she was wrong, because they got the first paragraph there, she would allow a new black state. And the second one, paragraph, the Australian Constitution already gives the federal parliament their power. Well, isn't she just saying what the parliament can already do, but just apply it to a black state? They don't argue that about the black state. They just reiterate and then say, well, she shouldn't have said it because it wouldn't affect those powers anyway. But they don't mention the black state in the second part of the verdict. They omit it. So here's their definition of misleading. The claim is accurate in parts. Well, it's 100% accurate, but the information has been presented incorrectly, out of context, or omitted. Well, the only part that extra there that they may have had an argument with was that she said can be used to form a black state. Well, no one knows what's going to happen because they're not disclosing anything about The Voice or what it's going to do. So she can't be misleading or anything. She's just saying what it could possibly do. So how is it presented incorrectly, out of context, or has she omitted something? Well, she didn't, but they did in their rebuttal, in their second paragraph, in that they don't mention the black state. So, ironically, they're committing a misleading actual statement within their verdict, claiming that Pauline is misleading. And right at the start, they actually opened up with a misleading statement. One Nation Senator is wrong. Well, that means, if it's wrong, there's nothing accurate there. Then they go on, it's misleading. The claim is accurate in parts. That's not what wrong means. So that's twice they misled the reader in their article on Pauline Hanson misleading everyone else. So they did the predictable, obligatory, play the man, not the ball. I mean, she's using The Voice, using it to become relevant again. Well, according to the money she gets paid as a senator, she's meant to be relevant, whether it's a gain or not. So what, she slackened off? She wasn't earning her keep, and now she is. Is there something wrong with that? This is what senators are meant to do. Scrutinise, closely examining the government, discussing issues of national importance. I think The Voice is pretty important. So it's pretty clear that they claim that she wants to be relevant again. It's just an opinion, but still, it's obviously presented incorrectly when you look at, well, that's her job. So they got up to 3 times misleading their readers in their hit piece. So when Pauline says that, makes the claim that would allow the government to be able to create a black state, well, they should be able to say, well, there isn't going to be a black state created, but they can't. So what they do is they go into how new states are created, and they imply that it's not going to happen by stating that in Northern Territory they tried to make that a state and the people voted against it. What they leave out is that any part of the state under the authority of the monarch can be made a territory by the Commonwealth. That's what happened with the ACT. So you could end up with a 2-stage process where the monarch, King Charles, he's all for this under his Terra Carta, public-private partnerships. He'd sign up for that, and they could annex parts of Queensland and New South Wales and make it into a territory. Oh, then they get to vote. Who is it for? It's a black territory. Well, they might vote themselves a state. So leaving this out, they're up to number 4 in omission as far as misleading the reader. And they could still just do it through the parliament anyway, without the monarch. When you look at what I mentioned in my prior video on The Voice, how the Voice forms its own chapter, which will then have the equivalent relevance in the constitutions. It's enshrined, the recognition of them, as other chapters. Now, this is new states. And as the Indigenous people are the only ones recognised in the Constitution, where there is a contradiction, well, of course, they take precedence. Why don't they use the word acknowledge? Why don't they say, do you acknowledge that Aboriginals were the first peoples on this land. Well, yeah, but acknowledge doesn't have any legal ramifications. It's not a contract, as I mentioned before, whereas recognise, you recognise something, not just acknowledge it, recognise, you're giving, there was a definition of Beaver Dictionary as far as the contract goes, the latter gives the former authority. This is one of the experts they quote, constitutional law academic Professor Anne Toomey. Now, she appears in quite a few of these things. She was prominent in the Troops on the Street back in 2020. She helped massage that through. She has nothing new. All she does is states the obvious, that Section 129 will grant power to the Parliament, and it's not the making of new states. Well, that's Section 122. She just states the obvious. She doesn't refute anything Pauline Hanson said. In fact, in not refuting it, she's omitting even addressing it, so you could count this as number 5 in there, misleading the reader. So, critical question is, it's not about the power, that's already in the Constitution, it's about who's going to wield it. And that's one thing they won't discuss. And in fact, as mentioned many times before, the voice is intentionally not being disclosed a form and function because they don't want to tell us what they're going to do. So you can't argue with something they haven't told us. Well, it's sort of like inviting someone into your house and giving them a gun, and you can walk around and it's loaded, and you say to them, "Oh, you're not going to shoot me, are you?" They go, "No, I'm not going to shoot you." Well, why give them the gun? It's got at the bottom there, William Summers, AAP fact check. We'll manage to mislead the reader at least 5 times in his fact check of misleading by Pauline. This Crikey article is just one of the multitudes of the full frontal assault of bullshit across every single medium they can think of, and the target audience for this, as I mentioned before, Crikey pretend to be alternate. Oh, but come on, can you vote yes anyway? All right, that's it for this one.